Hello. I hope you've had a great week so far. I made a mistake because I thought that this week I wanted to talk about aestheticism and why I think it's important. But I already wrote a pretty long essay on Substack about it, and I also created a TikTok on it. And I didn't want to keep rehashing things that I've already created. I will post the link to both of those videos and Substack posts that I already made if you're interested in my thoughts on aestheticism. But I took a little poll from you guys to see what philosophical topic you really wanted me to kind of hit on next. And the one that I want to do today is melancholy, why we romanticize melancholy, and just the philosophy of sadness and all of those things. So I'm going to touch on that briefly with you today. We'll do a few other things in this video as well, and then I think next week I'll post my summer YouTube video full of films and books and fragrances and candles and activities and foods to eat and all of those things that are just very quintessentially summer. So that'll be for next week's video, and I'll add in some philosophy stuff in there as well. So as I mentioned today, I want to talk about why we romanticize sadness and basically the philosophy of melancholy, because I think that some emotions are immediate. We have anger, joy, desire, and they rise quite quickly. They announce themselves, they burn through the body, and then they vanish. But sadness is different. It doesn't surge and then disappear. It just kind of settles, it stays, it lingers quietly beneath the surface. And sometimes it does that for days, sometimes for years, without asking for permission or explanation. And in a strange, almost instinctive way, we don't just endure that sadness. We tend to it, we nurture it, we wrap language around it, we write it into journals, turn it into playlists, fold it into aesthetics, and we really just find a way to romanticize it. There is a softness to melancholy that we keep returning to as if, it's a room that we've lived in before. It's very familiar, dimly lit, beautiful in a way that we can't fully explain. And I always ask myself why that is. Why does melancholy feel sacred? Why do we find comfort and sorrow in meaning, in the longing, and a kind of intimacy in being alone with our sadness? And maybe it's because sadness, unlike other emotions, asks something of us. It doesn't demand action, or it doesn't demand action the way that anger does. And it doesn't rush to resolve itself like joy. It just simply is. And we have to learn to live beside it. I think that it invites reflection and stillness and attention. And in that attention, we find a sort of beauty. To be melancholic is to feel the weight of things, not just personal grief, but something quieter and more expansive. It's really the ache of time passing and the space between people, and it's a longing for a life that never quite arrives. It's not always about something specific, it's about everything all at once. Maybe like a softness towards the world, or a slowness, or a recognition that nothing gold stays, and yet somehow that's what makes it golden. There's something strangely dignified about that kind of sorrow. It doesn't scream or it doesn't collapse, it just simply endures, and because of that, it feels honest and human and sometimes holy. In talking about the shape of sadness, Freud drew a distinction between mourning and melancholia that still feels very relevant even now. And there's mourning really is what happens when the loss is clear. If someone passes away or when something ends, it has an object. It doesn't close, and at least you can name it. But melancholia is a little bit different. It's grief without a center, and a sadness that really exists even when nothing has explicitly gone wrong. The loss is vague, sometimes even invisible, and you feel just emptied out. It's a kind of emotional free fall, and yet it holds you so tightly. Melancholy is longing without a destination. It's the ache of something missing, even if you can't quite say what it is. And strangely, that kind of ache can be addictive. And I say that as someone who loves to wallow. I love the feeling of melancholy and being sad in that similar addictive way. Because in a world that often feels overstimulating and numb, I think sadness demands a presence. When you're sad, I mean truly sad, you're awake, you're in your body, you feel the edges of things, the pain becomes proof of your aliveness. Simone Weil also once wrote that the soul has to go on loving in the void or else it ceases to exist. And I think that melancholy might just be that the soul's way of really continuing to love even when there's nothing left to hold on to. It becomes a form of devotion, a private ritual, a quiet, stubborn way of caring for what was or what could have been. Melancholy then isn't just a mood, it's a form of witness and a sign that something mattered, that you're still capable of depth in a world that wants everything to be shallow. And I guess in that vein, I also want to talk about how sadness can also be a form of self knowledge. For Kierkegaard, for example, despair isn't just a passing emotion, it's structural. It's baked into the condition of being human. In his novel, In Sickness Unto Death, he describes despair not as simply feeling bad, but as a kind of internal fracture where the inability to be at peace with oneself, you're really like at odds with who you are or with who you're becoming or even just the self that you believe that you're supposed to be. And so you feel that ache, but the ache is not meaningless. It's in fact, I feel like it's revealing because sadness in Kierkegaard's view becomes a kind of mirror. You learn who you are, not by what you desire in the moments of clarity, but by what you long for in the moments of grief, what keeps you up at night, what makes you feel hollow. And I think the shape of your sadness tells you what matters, if that makes sense. It really draws the outline of your values, your hopes, your fears, and in that sense, despair isn't failure, it's a self-knowledge. And there's something deeply romantic about that. I think sadness becomes identity. You're the girl in the window at twilight, tracing raindrops with your finger, or you're the boy writing poems in your notes app because it's the only place that, you feel like you can tell the truth. Maybe you're the one who feels a little too much or who sees the beauty in things just as they disappear. And there's a quiet power in that position because while others are busy moving on, you're still there paying attention. You're still there inside that feeling and inside that moment, refusing to let it go until it has been fully lived. Okay, when it comes to beauty and suffering, Charles Baudelaire, often called, the poet of modern melancholy, believed that suffering wasn't just an unfortunate byproduct of life, it was the very soil from which beauty grows. For him, art was inseparable from anguish. The shadow gave light its shape. The wound gave words their weight. And in The Flowers of Evil, he famously wrote, "I can barely conceive of a type of beauty in which there is no melancholy." And he really meant that. Ooh, did you see that flicker of light? That was spooky. I very much believe in ghosts. Anyways, Baudelaire did not just write about sadness, he really lived inside it. He saw that beauty was not something that floats above pain, but as something that really emerges through it. It's changed by it, it's made more real because of it. And maybe that's what we're doing when we romanticize our own sadness. We're trying to make something from the ache and give it structure, and aesthetics becomes this form of alchemy when you're turning the raw chaos of emotion into something legible and beautiful and something that means something. So I guess in that way, melancholy becomes a kind of resistance, and this refusal to numb out and a refusal to really move on too quickly. And it's this quiet, deliberate way of saying, this mattered and it hurt and it shaped me into a different person. Even as the world forgets and as the moment passes, you stay there a little longer and you trace the outlines of your sorrow until it resembles something that is close to art. Because if we can make something beautiful out of pain, then maybe it wasn't meaningless after all. Okay, and talking about the aesthetic of longing, right, in this world obsessed with productivity and speed and happiness, melancholy almost feels subversive. I think, we do things like make playlists like romanticizing your heartbreak or main character in the rain or something really cheesy like that. I feel like, maybe you're someone who lights candles or incense and rereads old books and does like the main character walk with your headphones in, pretending that the whole world is a film in a very Sofia Coppola-esque type of way. But this performance of sadness, I don't feel like it's fake for many of us. I feel like it's almost ritualistic and a soft aesthetic form of grieving, not always for a person or an event, but sometimes just the ache of being alive. Sometimes there's a danger and a gift of sadness. Two things can be true at once. Sadness can be seductive. There's a safety in melancholy, especially when the world feels too sharp and uncertain. And I feel like it kind of gives you a script, a mood to inhabit or a quiet place to retreat to. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to imagine anything beyond it. At some point, though, sadness becomes this way of living, a ritual, or maybe like a room that you can't feel like you can escape from. Albert Camus once wrote that to become God is only to be free on this earth, not to serve an immortal being. And I think that that applies here in an unexpected way. When we romanticize sadness, we risk turning longing into a god. We build these altars in our head of what could have been, and we begin to worship, the ache itself. But eventually, you have to choose life, and not because life is always better or easier or more beautiful, but because it's real. So I don't think that romanticizing sadness is inherently wrong. In fact, I think that it's important to us just as humans existing on this planet. So, I think it's one of the most human things that we can do, and it's how, it's really about how we soften it and shape it and survive it and turn it into art and music and beauty, and we give it form so it doesn't devour us whole. I think that it's really the best that we can do to make poetry out of the ache and to keep loving in the void, even when there's no one to answer us or there's no one there to be there for us. So I think sadness is something that will come and go, but melancholy lingers. And I think that I feel like it's something that we can slip into during the quiet moments, and maybe it's what we need it to do, not to stay stuck or to glorify the suffering, but just to remind us that there are things in this world that are worth aching for. And I think that that's the quiet gift of melancholy. Not to drag us under, but to tether us into something real, something fragile, something beautiful, and something worth being human for. So I guess this was a love letter to my fellow sad girls who just love being sad. You're in good company. I'm one of those people. And if you resonate with this, I hope that it helps you feel understood and less alone, because I feel like being someone who enjoys sadness to my detriment can feel quite isolating and lonely, but it's nice to know that there are more of us out there.
Cute.
Yeah, it's right up the street. Where is Kettle? Ask Jake where Kettle is. Yeah, we'll go right now. Okay, moving into a more casual section of this YouTube episode, I wanted to give you maybe like a little reading update and then share some happy mail and yeah, maybe like some perfumes that I've been liking recently. I have not been able to read as much as I normally have been. It's been a very stressful month because my lease is up this month. And as you know, finding an apartment is extremely expensive in the summer. So I'm thinking about subletting for a month or two until I can really find a place that makes me feel like home, which is very difficult to do. So my goal is to maybe sublet for 1 month and hopefully find something then. But I'm really sad because like my whole world is filmed in this little corner of my library with all of my books and perfumes, and I'm going to have to be scrappy with my stuff, which really sucks. I hate moving. I hate packing all of that stuff, especially when you have to do it alone. So that's not fun, but maybe I can take you guys along with me and you can pack with me and keep me company, and I can show you some places that feel exciting for me, feel homey and cozy. I don't know if that's of any interest because I'm not like I don't know. I feel like there are so many like beautiful creators on these apps that have like the most beautifully aesthetic homes, and I'm just like books everywhere, chaos, perfume. It's okay though. Anyways, so that's like my little update, my little life update. Let me tell you what I've been reading. Okay, I have been reading Existentialists and Mystics by Iris Murdoch, and this is actually one of the best philosophy books that I've read in a really long time. I've very much been enjoying this. I have not read much of it. I've read about I've read about this much, but I've been enjoying it so far. It's a nice little dent. I just started reading The Years by Annie Ernaux, so I don't have any feedback on this yet, but I've been enjoying this. This is the other philosophy book that's been on my TBR, but I haven't started this yet. And despite all of the books that I should be reading right now, do you know what I'm doing? Rereading Rebecca for like the millionth time, dreaming of October, dreaming of autumn and pumpkins and spooky stuff, and yeah. So I've been kind of living in this world in Manderley. That's okay. Penguin actually sent me books that I have not read yet that I'm excited to read. They sent me Never Let Me Go, which I've heard of, but again, like this has been on my TBR. I've been recommended this book, so I'm really excited to read this one. They also sent me something that I've never heard of called We Were the Universe by Kimberly Parsons. So I don't know anything about this yet, and I should have done my homework before I did this video, but that's okay. And then I'm actually really, really excited about this. I downloaded the audiobook on Spotify because it's free on my premium. It's called The Dry Season, and this is a memoir of pleasure and a year without sex. This is interesting to me. This is very interesting to me. And I'm probably going to read this and listen to the audiobook, so I will report back, but I am so excited about this one. And the other book that I am very excited about, but also feel a little bit of like the controversy stirring around this book, and it makes me almost not want to read it, but I'm going to read it, is this one. Notes to John. There's a lot of controversy about this book, and I have a lot of opinions, but I'm not going to share them because I think there's enough discourse about it on the internet already. But I will read this, and I will give you my thoughts on it. And I feel torn because I do think that Joan Didion is such a brilliant writer, but I also like the fact that they kind of pulled this from her diary and it wasn't explicitly stated that she gave them the okay makes me feel a bit icky. So we shall see. We shall see. But I am excited to read this one. Now, the next set of books are a bit niche and kind of interesting. I was listening to this podcast by it's the Perfume Room podcast with Emma Vernon, which is about fragrance, and she was interviewing Carlos, who is the founder of Arquiste, one of my favorite fragrance houses of all time. I love what they do. They created Poe, which is one of my favorite like dark academia scents. Anyways, he mentioned, because he was previously an architect, and he mentioned this series of books that he was reading about people like in the Renaissance, how there's like this whole series, there's 4 large books about the daily lives of people who lived in the Renaissance era, like what they had for breakfast that day, what they put on for dinner that night, what kind of clothes they wore, how they conversed with one another, and I find that fascinating. So here's one of the books. This is my favorite cover of all of them. But in this, like, you see all of these cool photos and like things that they would do, how they would brush their hair in the morning, like all of these little daily activities that they would do that I just find very interesting. This is kind of niche, so I apologize if I'm losing you, but there's this one. You guys, I found this on eBay. This one, and it came in a bundle, so I just got the bundle because it was almost cheaper than some of the other ones that I found that they were selling individually. But nevertheless, these are kind of like collector books. I love this stuff. I love this period of time. So that's my little reading update. Let me recommend a YouTube video. Ethel Kane created a YouTube masterpiece episode where she talked about scents that they're loving, and she mentioned this Temple Moss candle by Beluspa, and I got this on sale for like 20 bucks, and it smells very good. It's very fresh, very green, very earthy, very grounding, very perfect for summer if you're into green, earthy scents. This is really nice. She recommended a lot of other scents, so I highly recommend going to look at that video by Ethel Kane. It will keep you very entertained, and just it will satiate your appetite for like being able to relax and unwind to a YouTube video that just like makes you feel at home and at peace. I love Ethel's videos so much. And for some recent perfume acquisitions, I already mentioned Orency by Chambre 52, which is back there somewhere. I'll grab it in a second. But I also went to Scent Bar, and I was persuaded to buy this perfume, which I actually have to go swap out because it came broken. But it's called Un Air d'Apogée, and it's by Maison Violet, and it's broken, so it kind of leaked in the bag. And every time I walk by the bag, I have to go back to the store and exchange it, but for a bottle that's not broken. But every time I walk by the bag, it just like, the air is perfumed with this scent, and it is so lovely and so beautiful. So I'm excited to go back and get this one. It's really pretty. I was gifted this little BB size of Lune Feline by Atelier d'Or, and this is a very special gourmand scent. It's a very lovely vanilla. It's very light and airy, at least the way that I interpret it, but easily transferable into autumn winter. This is a very nice vanilla. It's very well done. The last perfume that I've actually been really loving is 1957 by Chanel. I have kind of been sleeping on this scent, but this is just such a beautiful musky iris clean scent for spring and summer. I know you're going to be super annoyed when I tell you that I wear this with Molecule, but I wear this with Molecule to make it woodier. God, I just honestly, like, I know that there are Chanel knows what's up. Like, let me just tell you, when it comes to fine fragrance, like, you cannot go wrong with Chanel, ever. I can tell you also that Le Lion is one of my favorite, most complimented fragrances of all time. It is such a rich, bold scent, and I literally am counting down the days until September when I can wear that again. I love it so much. But this is just lovely. It's such a beautiful, clean scent, and I've been loving this a lot. Speaking of, they also sent me for Father's Day. I don't really have a dad. My dad kind of went like my dad was very much in and out of my life, so I've had like other male figures in my life who I feel very connected to and very close to, who have kind of like taken the place of a father figure, like my grandpa, my brother, especially my brother and I are extremely, extremely close. But I do think that so many of us have very complicated relationships with our fathers and our mothers. But regardless, I think that scent is still one of the things that can make you feel nostalgic for either a person that never was or once was someone who you felt connected to and close to in your life. So they sent me this little package, and I feel like even if you haven't had a dad in the traditional sense, where like there hasn't been a person who taught you how to tie a tie or grill a steak or pick out a cologne, but I feel like somehow this bottle specifically of Blue by Chanel just makes me think of the good men in the world who show up anyway, and maybe they're quiet or complicated, or maybe they didn't know how to say the right thing always, but they always stayed around and they always were there for you no matter what. So that's what this scent kind of reminds me of. So here she is, he, maybe. This just reminds me of Sunday afternoons and old jackets like the 90s J. Crew barn jacket, and conversations that just meant more than they sounded like at that time. I feel like this is something that you would wear when you have like nothing to prove, but you're not loud about it. It's very clean and grounded and like sharp around the edges, but it's softened by something warm at the same time. It's kind of like the scent equivalent of a navy wool coat thrown over like a white t-shirt and 5 Day Stubble. It's like woody and citrusy and just a little bit bitter, like a man who has been through things but still makes the bed in the morning. This opens with a hint of lemon zest, bergamot, but once you give it a second, it really settles into something deeper. There's lavender and mint that really peek through like clean sheets. But I love the dry down more than anything. There's cedar and sandalwood, amberwood, tonka bean. It's just a confident scent. So I just am really grateful for this, and I think it's beautiful, honestly, for men and women. But this is the perfect, I would give this to a father figure in my life. Okay, I've chopped your ear off long enough about a lot of philosophy stuff and books and perfumes, so many things. So I'm gonna stop talking now. But please wish me luck on this sublet endeavor, because I am grieving the day that I have to take down all of this. This is like my sanctuary. And I'm really bummed out about it. But this is like first world problems, so I will shut up now. But let me know if you have any interest in coming along this finding a new apartment journey. But until then, I will see you next week. And next week, we're going to talk about summer. A summer for people who hate summer. So yeah, I'll see you then.